Can you hear me? Okay. First, I just feel so honored to be able to have a conversation with you. And I'm so happy that Howard and Sarah could put together such an important exhibition that a history that everyone should know about, and seems many people don't. So, and I wish we were having this conversation in one of our studios, but we're going to have it here. So,
Well, this is like the studio.
no, it doesn't feel that intimate. But and I want to talk to you about abstraction, but I want to also talk about the condition, condition of you as a painter and the time period we're talking about. And in academia, which is still really Euro-based, and the conversations or the responses that I hear from my students who are African American is they're often asked to represent the condition, and not be able to express in the way that they want, and that pressure is put upon them, and I think it is linked to the time, that you were working in back in the time of this Rebuttal show. So, do you want to talk about that condition at all, or?
Well, first because we're just seeing Betty Taylor, and she just passed away recently, so that was scary to see this. And also, I was on a panel with her just a few months before she passed away in Philadelphia. So, but she's part of that abstraction extension of what was going on. When I came back from Europe, I studied in Europe and at the Accademia in Florence, Italy, and also at the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam. And seeing the transition of art over there, so when I came back, I joined Spiral. I was one of the organizers of Spiral. Probably the only spokesperson left, unfortunately. Teresa Perez, deceased. And that was a great revelation there, coming back and seeing the whole history of Europe. It was their whole salon painting, and then going into Impressionism, and then Expressionism, and then into abstraction, evolving out of Europe, all right? So Howard and I came back, traveling all around Europe and all the museums there, which I was fortunate to be able to do, and seeing the transition of the salon art into Impressionism and Expressionism, and then into abstraction. Because right away, what is an abstraction? Abstracting is taking from, or simplification of, or emotional interpretation of one's internal feelings. So when I came back, I met, which I felt and still feel, one of the great Afro-American artists, Romain Baden, Hale Woodruff, Charles Austin, and Norman Lewis. They were involved with the basics and moved on beyond just the basics. And moving not beyond Afro-Americanism, but more involved with internal sensibility of communication visually. Spiral wasn't just visual arts, because there's writers and composers and all came there. So the discussion was far beyond just the simplicity of creativity as an artist. It was involved with the survival in American society and being African-American. And so I had to adjust to this. And since these were all the elder prominent artists of the time, and which when I came there, they didn't know any the younger artists. And I knew the younger artists, so I brought 5 of the younger artists into the group. And the exchange was kind of strange at the beginning, because how much they were able to look each other in the eye and understand what happened. And how much was expected of them to imitate European salon art by painting images of self and the African-American society. That was continuation of the salon art from Europe. And so when they was involved with abstract expressionism, which we didn't call it abstract expressionism. That's getting ahead of my time, I'll explain that. How much they all were involved with the salon art concept in the beginning, because they all were figurative. Hal Woodruff made giant murals of Afro-American culture, and then he became abstract. Abstract from what? His abstraction was based from carvings of African art sculpture and making it two-dimensional. And I think many are aware of that, what happened, right? And then Norman Lewis was involved doing a lot of figurative painting, because he was very dominant in Harlem as a teacher and as an artist in Harlem. And his paintings were figurative in the early years. So was Woodruff. And then Romeo Bearden and Charles Austin. And all of a sudden they become abstract. Abstract, what does it mean by abstract? They're evolving into a state of how expression, he says. Unless you were a visual artist expressing the salon concept of painting your social existence and identity, then you're not an artist. So abstraction was not accepted at the beginning, right? Because they were painting, and I think Norman Lewis described that more than anything else, internalized creativity, expressing yourself how you feel inside and how you think, and how you relate. And visually, how much does that take place? Now, two-dimensional design is how one has to get used to that, because we're not studying at the academia in Florence, you have to understand optics. And what is two-dimensional? Since European art is two-dimensional art on canvas, right? Not Africa or Asia, which is quite different. It's involved with sculpture and tapestries and other physical forms. So how much the transition from salon art to abstraction, going from impressionism to expressionism and then to abstraction. So abstraction to the visual artist there was not termed abstract expressionism, it was improvisation. This is coming out of the jazz era. And I was a jazz singer, so it was very easy for me to get involved with kind of an abstract sensibility and work. So I said, well, you're doing landscapes. No, they're not landscapes, they're mindscapes. They're based on emotional sensitivity using landscapes as a metaphor to express that. And so those are back there, these are landscapes. No, they're not landscapes. They don't exist in any particular place in time or for any image. So, and I learned this also from how much I studied with a lot of the prominent American artists, which I think I mentioned earlier. I learned from African artists about the internal creative expression. And then meeting with Spiral, there was this emphasis of really learning from these, I felt at the time, masters of visual art. And so from that, I started to grow. If one was an artist, a writer, or a composer, you never stop learning. Right now, at my age, you're still learning. I'm 94, all right? So how much you can keep on. You never stop learning. I don't want to give it because I really think I'm 75. So the transition to abstraction, I hope you can get an idea now that how Afro-American artists were painting internalized personal sensitivity and how much form that takes, which shows up in Betty Clayton's paintings. She said it, really.
Yeah, she said, reality is symbolic form.
Right.
I thought that was beautifully said.
Yes.
It's really just perfect.
Right.
But if you Google like 10 most known African American artists, right? And we know there's a lot of abstract painters that are prominent African American artists, but you still come up with like 9 of the 10 being figurative painters, and most of them showing at Jack Shaman Gallery. And so I'm just like, what do you think the priority is, you know, for the African American artists to, or the market even, to lean on representation over those internalized expressions of an experience?
Well, the abstract movement of African American arts in the United States started. Jacob Lawrence, you have to realize at the same time the spiral was going on. There was a Wawusi artist and Afro-Cobra artists, which were involved with a certain expression. So how much one here is involved with that transition, and I guess look my appointment there and what you're saying.
Well, I was just saying, like, there still seems to be an impetus, you know, for African American artists to be representational.
Oh, because of the media. That's what I was trying to make connection. The media, in terms of African American artists accepting at the time, they were not accepted unless they were very figurative, which is part of the salon thinking, right? And so African American artists like Jacob Lawrence and Ernie Critchlow and several other visual artists of the time was accepted because this is what African American artists are supposed to paint, right? And that was dictated by the media. It's not all right if they wanted to paint that way, but to be dictated that's what they're supposed to paint was the problem, right? Perfectly if they were going to do this. So the abstract art by African American art was not accepted because that's not what they should be doing. White artists is all right they do an abstraction, but the African American art is not supposed to do that. Right? So this is a dilemma at the time, and still in somewhat to today there is a problem with the black community rejecting abstract artists, not understanding this internal expression of themselves, you know, in the art, and how much they paint a particular image. Because I remember when Roman Baden started to be symbolistic in his paintings, using some figures in it, right? And that had to do, maybe I'll explain that whole thing, because that's the mystery that goes on. What happened, Raymond Baden was one of the best abstractionists in that group until he switched over to more figurative or symbolistic paintings, because that's what they were. They were kind of semi-abstract even then. When the group came together, the youngsters and the elders, they didn't actually how much they started to meet. So Roman Baden saw the fact that all of the artists in Spiral painted completely different. None of them looked like anything of each other, right? Yeah. Even in the abstract era, they had no similarities. So Roman Baden said, we need some unity here, right? After we got, a group of the artists. So he says, let's make a giant collage together. And you do your own thing, but do it only as a collage way of doing it. So he had this big thing of paper on the floor for all of us to work on, and I got involved with a little bit of cutting out stuff and pasting it up, and then after a little bit I said, Roman, this is not my thing. And others felt they didn't get involved with that. So Roman Baden wouldn't be discouraged. He went on and kept on doing this. So he became the abstractionist in terms of collage art. That's where that started, all right? And someone realized now that whole movement of what he did with collage painting, which was semi-abstract and symbolistic, right? And that's how much that all started there. But the rest of the artists stayed in their own little camp, right? And doing what they were doing. But this where he moved on, but also he was more accepted by the media because it was semi-figurative. All right?
But I can imagine that collage would not appeal to you in looking at the way you use color in your own paintings, because, you know, you don't map out an arena in your paintings. They become flexible and absorbent and muscular, the color. And that's how I see it. And I'm just curious, because the color is so spectacular in your work and does have that kind of absorptive movability and.
Well, but you know that now, but I saw the exhibition over there, which is it's tonal painting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this doesn't represent what I do at all. But there was this thing, I was at the early stages of painting, I was a tonalist. And Bob was on school. I don't know if you're familiar with Bob was on school. Right? Well, anyway, there was this kind of imagery, not based on color space. After now, recently I'm involved with color illusion, which I learned because the Academy in Florence. How the eye sees. And it has to do with what's two-dimensional design. It's very basic. And how the eye sees two-dimensional space, which doesn't exist in the other cultures. And the eye sees circles two-dimensionally advance on the eye, squares recede, and triangles direct. That's basic design. And then in terms of color, warm colors, reds and oranges advance, and blues and greens recede. So if you're making a design, how much you're going to use circles, or you're going to use color, is two-dimensional illusion. And this is where the eye sees and understands. But it also has an after image. What is blue over here, and it'll see its after image orange even though it's not there on the same two-dimensional space. So I had to learn this, right? Because in Cavaraccio's painting, he painted figures with blues and red and yellows, but no orange. The orange, if you stare at the paint long enough, you'll see orange also. So there's this after image within the same basic space, even though the color is not necessarily there, but the eye does that. The eye will always show the after image. And the structural design also, it'll do this. So I had to learn just two-dimensional design, which is easel painting, European painting.
Right.
So when I came back, how much I was going to do this two-dimensionally. So when you're introducing a collage, it becomes a three-dimensional space other than the optic space of two-dimensional structure.
So does it matter to you, or is it important that your work is seen as like we were talking about labels, right? The African American painter, or coming from the experience, or being of the experience. I mean, because often abstraction has been linked into being coming out of jazz, or African fabric, or just.
There's an exhibition that was at the Studio Museum before it moved to 125th Street. It was in a loft. I was one of the first ones to have an exhibition at the Studio Museum in Harlem, right? And in that exhibition, my paintings were all abstract, because that was in the middle of late 60s, early 70s. That's when the Studio Museum really developed, all right? Mm-hmm. And all my paintings were abstract. Kind of flat, illusionistic landscapes, right?
Right. Are they not abstract now?
Well, they still, you consider them being that, because I don't paint from subject matter, I paint from feeling of nature, right?
Right, and you kind of put together different aspects of ideas.
But also forms and shapes.
Right.
So shapes, two-dimensionally, I know it's always there no matter what you do. If you're not abstracting, you move a line like that, there's a triangular movement. And if you use red and you don't do anything else, there's green showing up in the painting. So there's this whole optical illusion, two-dimensional design. And once you learn two-dimensional design, whatever mark you put within that rectangle or circle, like Betty Blayton was doing, it's going to respond to your eye a certain way. So it's a matter of understanding two-dimensional design in a painting. So those who didn't know that, go back and look at in Metropolitan Museum of the Old Masters, and watch what happens with the figures, how they use them. In terms of paramedic space, in terms of using color, in terms of advancing and receding space, how circularly do the head, or they cut the top off, like the top of the head will go back and straight. All of this is basic design. The old master did it very, very well. And I remember I had to go back and look at, I said, well, this is just salon Eagles painting, not so. They were really involved with the whole illusionistic effect of two-dimensional structure. So I had to go back and relearn what I already knew, I thought I knew. Right. So, and after teaching for years, and in terms of students, which I said something earlier about one not learning.
Right.
One doesn't get full perspective, that's all, unfortunate, in academia. And many years I've been doing that for years. You realize, I told you a hunter, all right?
Yeah. When did you do? What year was it?
In the middle
In the
70s.
70s.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm an interdisciplinarian. I learn from spiral, right? Whatever you do is involved beyond the norm, right? And influences, if one's a business person, how much involved innovative creative thinking, or in the engineer, or whatever other discipline. This is what I try to teach at Hunter. They weren't ready for that. I had to leave. I went to San Jose State, and they tried to do it there. They weren't. Also the same thing. They weren't ready for me. Because I did weird stuff in terms of illusion and space, and have the scientific and engineers analyze what was going on. I included a balloon that's almost the size of this room, with students just taking flat plastic sheets and gluing them together and then blowing it up. And this was at Sonoma State University, California. And they said, well, what are you doing? So I asked the engineers, when it was still flat, how do you inflate this? And you need a compressor. And no, I did it with a box fan. In 10 minutes, it inflated that entire symbol, right? And then constantly involved with experimenting with that in terms of the reverberation is on the skin of that one. I put an orchestra inside, and it was analyzing by reverberations. And I put a dance company inside and viewing it from outside, and then trying to get these people inside. They said, well, no air. I said, well, plenty of air in there, you won't suffocate, all right? So there was a whole strange encounter with this just simplistic space. Now this is involved in using all the other medias that come there of academia to respond to this. But again, it was rejected like an alien, out of space. So I went, at San Jose State, I tried to do it, and that was rejected because they had all the students involved with these strange kind of encounters, so it would appeal to the rest of academia. And didn't go. But I was accepted to go to Penn State, and they allowed me to do it. All right? I was accepted as interdisciplinary by the dean, but my faculty did not know what the heck I was doing, right? And they rejected me, so they only allowed me, I was there for 14 years, they only allowed me to do it for 2 semesters because of my faculty, it just was opposed to it. Now all the universities involved in interdisciplinary study, 30 years after I was trying to do it. All right, or 40 years. Which came out of Spiral.
And you are the last surviving artist.
There's Emma Amos, but she's having problems communicating. Yeah. And there's Calvin Douglas, which he had a stroke, and he's living in Florida, and he's not capable. So I'm the only one visually to respond to what happened and what's going on. And the influence it had on me, but also the influence it had on all the other artists. There was 15 artists in Spiral. 13 became professors at the university. All right? And each of them didn't take what I took, became an experience. They took their own kind of sensitive experience out of spiral, which is an advanced kind of sensitive thinking in visual arts, and applied it to wherever they went, right? So that was a very unique extension of spiral sensibility. And the spiral sensibility, I think it was a club. It was not a club. And the rejection of women. They said, well, Emma Amos was the only one in spiral. That's not true. Emma Amos was about 20 years old when she came to spiral, right? And all the others were in their 50s and 60s and so forth, right? So there's a problem here. And the fact that how she came to spiral, Hale Woodruff came from Atlanta. And Emma Amos was at the university in Atlanta. And so when she came to New York, she had just graduated. And the family asked, which Roman and Hale Woodruff knew the family in Atlanta, how much she would be all right going to New York. So they asked Hale Woodruff's wife to look out for Emma Amos. So being very open and sensitive, when he came to Spiral, he brought Emma Amos with him, right? And we were setting up an exhibition, and that's why she was included. Otherwise, she never got involved in the debates with us, right? And the continuation of the experiments that we were involved with. But she exhibited with us, so they said, well, she was the only one in Spiral. That's not true. Because Betty Blake used to come in the dialogue and visit with us. I can't remember. Well, several of the women that came at the time that came and was involved with the dialogue. Well, several writers also came, and composers and designers showed up. Musicians came there. Roman Bidden was involved with composing some music, and also with Merch Simpson. And actually, Merch Simpson designed a whole orchestration for Roman Bidden when he passed away, to his memoriam. Right.
So I have to return to your statement in the film.
Okay.
Because I found it true on some level and a little depressing,
Oh, yeah.
but
Right.
which was, who's going to change this situation? Who we're talking to each other?
Right.
Who's listening?
Right.
Do you feel things have changed?
It hasn't changed enough. There's still a wall, let's say, which has not been penetrated through. It separates, right now it's showing up even more so because of our kind of administration, unfortunately, sets up this barrier between minorities and the white population, which is unfortunate that that wall has been built there again. It was fading away, right? All of a sudden, there it is again. Come on, what's going on here? We're much better than that. But there is that kind of sensibility when it comes to a work of art, of mine, or what's his name? He was up there for his work being in his show. And the fact that all of a sudden he said, well, like Norman Lewis is a perfect example. Norman Lewis was one of the top expressionists that was in galleries. Because they didn't know who this man was.
Right.
When they found out he was black, his work was rejected.
Right.
And what happened in this particular prominent gallery in New York, I'm telling you here at the moment, and his work was purchased by someone, but the purchaser found out he was black, she canceled the sale. And that's kind of weird. That happened several times with a lot of artists.
Willard.
Right.
Well, I trust. Willard Gallery.
Willard.
Yeah,
Good. And it was one of the prominent galleries of the mystics extractionists at the time. And it's unfortunate the fact that they treated him so badly that Norman pulled his paintings out of there and never exhibited again at any gallery till he died.
Yeah.
And he'd taken over my classes at the Art Students League. okay? Where all the prominent people of artists taught. I was teaching there, but also at Hunter. And Hunter said, if you're teaching here, you can't teach there. So I gave up my classes at the Art Students League, and I asked, humbly, Norman Lewis, because I respected him so much as one of the great artists and teachers, would he take my classes? He said, oh, great. And I didn't realize he would be enthusiastic about it. And they embraced him also at the Art Students League, for him to come there and do that. So he taught there until he died, unfortunately. And I didn't know when that was happening, right?
Yeah, I try to remain a little hopeful with Soul of the Nation and Joe Overstreet's recent show at Eric Firestone, where he sat there and people came and talked and seemed really interested in the work. But I try to remain hopeful about that. But I still am doubtful when I hear that students are asked to make certain types of work. And just, so did you feel free to make any type of work you wanted, or did you feel any pressure to make a certain type of work?
Well, this would happen at Spiral too. No matter what pressure is out there, I'm going to do what I'm going to do.
Yeah,
If you're going to be true as an artist, and also if you're an American artist, you're not going to deny it because the media says, do it this way. So we're blocked in the fact of being very individualistic in the sense of, going to do it this way, that's it. No matter what, if it's accepted or not accepted. But it ended up in many ways becoming accepted. And, but many of the artists, they like Hale Woodruff. How much accept his abstract work? But his mural paintings are being exhibited all over the United States right now, but not his abstractions. And there's also, well, what's very great, Norman Lewis's paintings now are everywhere. And they're selling recently $100,000, $200,000 at one place, right? And money was never the important thing with the artists. If you got to do what you got to do, if it bought, it's the way I am, it sells, I'm not going to paint for a particular place in terms of where it's going to be sold. I enjoyed, actually in painting, as an artist, composer, or musician, you enjoy the encounter of the process. That's the joy, is the process of what you're doing as a writer, or a composer, or an artist. So the after effect is all secondary to whatever that is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for me, abstraction is that capturing that essence of the feel, of the soul.
Yeah, right.
And that has just as much merit for representing one's self.
Betty Clayton said it very well.
Right,
Excellent.
than outward representation. So
Mm-hmm.
I hope that more abstract artists will get the due. I mean, I'm happy to hear about Jack Whitten now, and people really getting the due that they've always deserved.
Right.
Is there anything else you want to add?
Oh, thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you both.